Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Let us talk about SQL for beginners and let us just get right into it. First of all, what is a database? If you don't know, you can think about it as a collection of tables. And what is a table? A table is actually a place where you can have rows or entries, and a table has columns or fields, if you will. So they have columns. So that means that you can think about a table as something from a spreadsheet. I'm using LibreOffice right here. And then you can see that I have some columns, some headers on each column right here. And those fields also need to be defined for each table inside the database. And then we have rows right here. Every table has a name, and this name right here is spaceship. And we have something that is unique, that is the ID. And in the example I'm going to show you in just a minute, then I'm going to make this ID just as a running number, and it will automatically increment by 1 when it will be insert a new entry. So that means that we just need to think about this data over here. So that is a table, and we can have multiple tables. And if we're dealing with relational databases, then you can have relations between the tables. That means that we can actually have an ID in the captain table right here. And then we can refer to that ID from the spaceship table by adding a captain_ID column. If you don't have a better naming convention, then I suggest that you just use this naming convention that I'm using right here, where I take the name of the other table and then I add _ID. So that means that right now this captain ID right here, that means that the captain for this spaceship right here is Susan, and she has 2 years of experience, and she crashed once with one of her spaceships. And also this spaceship right here, that is a pyramid shape, that is also Susan. She is usually also flying that one. And then we have some fuel right here, that is tons of. There can be tons of spaceship fuel that we have right here. So they're fueled a bit differently. And then we have a Captain 1 right here, that is Mike. And then we have a Captain 4 right here, which is Jane. The benefit of the good thing about doing it like this is that I can add more metadata right here. If I only had like the name in this column right here, then every time then first of all, I would not get all the extra data. Maybe I'm also interested in the experience and the number of crashes. Maybe I also have another column that says when the captain is actually available for the next flight. All those information can be stored inside the captain's table, while we then have information about the spaceship inside the spaceship table. And so it's awesome with relations like this. That means that you don't need to repeat all of this data more than once. So or you don't need to repeat the data. That's what I want to say. So if you had the captain name right here, then you will have to write Susan twice. But let's say that Susan actually changes her name, because that is actually possible. Maybe she gets married and she chooses to take the husband's name. It could also be the other way around, of course, but she chooses to take the husband's last name, and then, of course, her name would change to something like Susan Space Flyer, or whatever her husband's name is. And maybe it's just for fun, she wants to change the name. Then you would actually have to change it in all of the rows. That means 2 places right here. But if you just change, if you're using relations and IDs like this, references instead, then you just need to change it 1 place. And the same with the experience, of course. Maybe suddenly she gets some more experience. Now she's been flying for 2 more years, and then we just add it like that. So that is the purpose of a relational database. That is how it works. How can we get started with some technical stuff, you probably ask, so we can see how... so we can run some SQLs, because SQL is structured query language, and that is how we communicate with our database. That is how we send commands to our database. That's how we create tables. That's how we insert the rows into the tables. That's how we delete rows. That's how we select rows. That's how we update rows from the tables. First of all, I'm using Docker to spin up a database, and I will recommend you to do the same. Then you don't mess up your own environment by installing databases on your local development machine. And it's very, very easy. This is a Docker Compose file. This is my Postgres right here. I'm using the image Postgres latest. If you don't know which database to start with, I would definitely recommend that you use Postgres or MySQL. Postgres is my preferred database, because it gives better error messages if I try to insert the wrong type into into a table, then I'll get a hard error right here. The MySQL actually sometimes it will actually tries to change the data so it matches the type of the columns, and I don't like that actually. Of course, if you don't want to have less errors, then you would choose MySQL. If you want to know what kind of data you stuff into your database, then you use Postgres instead. Then we have the environment variables right here. That is where we set the username. That's where we set the password, and we can also set a default database. I'm actually not using this right now because I'm not. The database does not exist. Then I am placing it on the same network as the adminer, image right here, as adminer application right here, the container that we have right here. The cool thing about the adminer container is that this gives us a web UI to our database, which you can use. I'll not use it in this demonstration right here, but you can reach it on port 8080 because you're mapping out that's right there. And the adminer, because it's on the same network as the Postgres container, then they can see each other by using the service name. So admin can connect to my Postgres by using name my Postgres right like that, and then using the port 5432. But I'm going to use IntelliJ. IntelliJ is awesome with its database connectivity and its views and how to administrate a database. Of course, you can also use another ID, but I'm using IntelliJ. You can use the Community Edition or the Ultimate Edition, which I'm using right here. First of all, if you want to get the database view, you can press View, Tools, and then Database, Tools, and then Database. It's right there. And I also have it on the right side, as you can see right here. And here I can press the little plus button, and then I can connect to a new data source. And if you don't have the driver, then IntelliJ will actually download the driver for you, which is very easy. And you can also have multiple data sources, of course, if you want to play around with multiple database types. SQL is, you write SQL for one database. It is specific to the database that you write it to. So that means that if you have an SQL and then you try to run it against an Oracle database, then you created this SQL for Postgres, then it might not work because there are slight differences between the different database types. Another thing, I've already started the Docker. I've already started my Docker Compose by running Docker Compose up, and then my database is already running, as you can see right here. I've created some SQLs that we can try to look at. First of all, I want to create a table. That's the first thing I want to do. And this is an SQL.SQL file, and I would definitely recommend that you use files to place your SQLs in, because it's much easier to change when you mess up, when you make mistakes. And it's also, you also get some help from IntelliJ, and you choose the dialect right here. So IntelliJ can help you by with code completion, and it can also tell you if you actually made an error somewhere. So let us see if I do like this. Then I get errors, I get error markings, and because drop table is spelled drop instead of with two O's. And for the first thing I do right here, I drop the table if it exists. Drop table. This part right here is not mandatory. I could leave this one out. And I don't care if it exists or not. It's to just try to delete it. Then I would just get an error if the table doesn't exist, which is also fine. It depends on in which situation you are and what you want to do. Then I create the table, and this part again is not mandatory. If I leave it out and the spaceship table already exists, then I'll just get an error. Cannot create a table because it already exists. So it depends on which situation you are in and whether you want that error or not. Then this is the name of my table, spaceship, and this is the ID. And I use the type serial. Whenever we have a column, then you need to say which type it is. It could be a Boolean, it could be a string, it could be an integer, and it could also, in this situation, be a serial. The cool thing about using a serial is that then you get the auto bump of the number of the ID. You get that automatically. Then you just insert a row with the other information right here, and you can leave out the ID. That means it will be null. But then the table itself would actually insert the next vacant number right as an ID. Then I've put on a constraint. This is called a constraint. I said that this is a primary key. That means that all of the IDs need to be unique. I cannot add the number ID 1 twice. Then I would get an error. It needs to be unique. It's a primary key. Then I have my caption right here, which is a varchar. Right now, I'm actually inserting the name of the caption, and I'm not using relations. That is in the first example right here. I'll show you how to use the relations in just a couple of minutes. Then we have varchar 250. That means that I can use 250 characters in this column right here, and it cannot be null. Again, I'm adding a constraint. I'm adding something that needs to be true, and it needs not to be null in order to be accepted. So that means if I try to insert a row with a caption that is null, then I would get an error. The same with fuel, it's just in integer instead, so it's tons of space fuel, if you will. Then we have the shape, that is a varchar 255. That means that I can have 255 characters inside this column right here. So I cannot find, and that is more than plenty. Maybe we could actually lower this to 100 instead, and then thereby save a bit of space. Then, after creating the table, and let me just run this, and then you can see how I actually run it. I just write run, and then the file. I can also press Ctrl-Shift-F10. If I want to execute one statement, then I can put the cursor, place the cursor at the statement, and I can press Ctrl-Enter to execute it. I want to run the whole file, and I've already run this, so I had to choose the data source, which I do by double-clicking right here. If you haven't done that, of course, you need to choose the data source, and then you can click run after doing that. So now the whole file will be run when you do it like this. And you get a sort of nice summary right here. Two out of two statements executed, and there was no errors. Then you will have some red marking and an error right here. So I am pretty happy. So now we have a table. So if I go to my Postgres database right here, which I have connected to, and if you to begin with, to connect to a data source, you will press Postgres right here. Then you would say, then you would actually give it some kind of name. It can be some kind of logic name that you choose. Then you choose the host, that is localhost, because you are mapping out the port 5432 to from the Docker container. That means then you can use localhost, and then this port right here. You add the username and the password, which we set in the environment variables inside the Docker Compose file. I think it was Mike and ABCD1234. But nevertheless, you add those right there, and then you choose a database that you want to connect to default, and then you get a nice URL right here. You can actually use this URL in your code if you want to connect using a DDPC connection. You can also add this to if you are if you have a Spring Boot Java project, and of course you can also use this URL right there, or you can give Spring its parameters and arguments one by one, host, ports, username, password, etc., etc., etc. I'll press cancel right now because I already have the database connection. Then, okay, actually, I wanted to see my table. Look at my table. I have a spaceship table right here. I'm happy. Let me just double click it. There's no data in it because I just deleted this table and I created it again. So there will be there's no rows in it right now. Let us insert some rows. Insert into spaceship. I have some dummy data right here, and the syntax is, the SQL syntax is insert into, and then the name of the table, then the column round bracket, and then the column names, and then the values after that. And you can see right here, I'm not giving the ID. The ID will be filled in automatically by the table. So I have a lot of dummy data right here. Let us run this file also. Run, blah, 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 and we choose the data source. Run again, and then let's see what happens. 7 out of 7 statements executed in 35 milliseconds. I am very proud of myself. I'll double click the spaceship table over in the right side, and now I click to see. Now I have data. I am very, very happy. Thank you very much, IntelliJ, for helping me with this nice little feature right here. If I don't want to use the ID, then I can also select data. If I use this statement right here, select, then I can actually mention all the columns that I'm interested in. If I'm interested in all the columns, then I can just use a star. It's much faster. This time I want to only execute this statement to begin with, so I press Ctrl-Enter after marking this statement right here. I could also have placed the cursor in the beginning. That would give me the same result. But now I get a small output result down here in this side right here. I can also say that I want to order by fuel discounting. So now I'll get the spaceships with the highest fuel, in the top right here. Then I can actually use something called aggregated functions, and then I use that by, for instance, if I want to sum up the fuel per per shape. I want to see how much fuel is there per shape of spaceship. Then I can sum them up by first mentioning what I want to sum up on, and then I can sum up on the which column do I want to sum on, and then it's the fuel, and then I add a group by in the end. So select, and then the aggregation, then the group, the aggregation, and then from spaceship, from which table, and then group by shape like this. Then we will get a result that looks like this. Saucer, 20 tons of spaceship fuel. Then we have the round, 110 tons of spaceship fuel. Awesome, awesome, awesome. What if I want to update one field? Then I can update one field, but I can also update a lot of fields by using the update spaceship. Then I can set whatever I want to set, like fuel to 100. And then I can set a criteria for which rows should be updated. And in this situation, I want to update rows where fuel is less than 50. I'll just run that. And then I can go back to my selects, and then I want to select all of my spaceships. And now I can see that now they have fuel 100. All of those that had less than 50. Cool. So now we learned how to create data, insert data, and also how to select a spaceship. We learned how to update the values. Let us try to delete all of the rows where we have a captain that starts with J. That means that Jane should be deleted and John should be deleted, right? So let us run that. 2 rows affected in 6 milliseconds. Thank you very much for that information. Now let us try to select all of the rows again, and now you can see that John and Jane are gone. So now we don't have as many spaceships that we had. We had 2 less spaceships. So now we actually learned the basics of SQL. We know to insert, to update, to select, to delete from the spaceship, and also to update, and we also know how to create and drop a table. Now let's look at relations, because that is a little bit more complex. This is usually where people get a headache. First of all, I'm creating this time. I'm creating two tables right here. First, I'm deleting the 2 tables: real spaceship and real captain. This is just because I just want to give it another name, and I want to use relations right here. So then I create a real captain right here, and again it has an ID, a name, experience, number of crashes, which are integers. And then we create another table right here, which is a real spaceship, and it has a captain's ID, which is an integer also, and it's not null. So this, in this situation right here, I'm also adding a constraint, a foreign key constraint, that's that the captain ID actually references the real captain, the table real captain and the ID inside there. This means that I can actually use something called cascade delete. So then I can actually delete my spaceships, and with cascade delete, that means that then the captain, or the other way around actually. If we delete a captain and use cascade delete, then the spaceships that are linked to it will also be deleted. But that is not in this demonstration right here. So I just wanted to show you the basics. Then I'm inserting some captains right here. So let us insert some captains. Right click, run the whole file. Thank you very much. Run. So now I inserted all of these captains right here. And I can actually see the captains by just double clicking right side. I have Mike, Susan. Okay, I have too many actually. Let us run this skill right here, because now I am dropping and creating the tables again. And let me just run this right here. Okay, so I'm actually creating 2 rows inside the captain, and I'm creating 2 rows inside my spaceship table. That's what I'm doing right here. So that means now I have data inside my captain table, and I also have data inside my spaceship table. And as you can see right here, I have a captain ID of 1 and a captain ID of 2, and those IDs actually matches these 2 captains right here. Okay, so now I want to create a select where we actually join these 2 tables. Let us say that we want data from both of these tables. Then I start with one table, and that is the spaceship. So the spaceship that is kind of that is the main table, and I want to select data from. But then I want to join it with the captain table, and I'm using aliases You can see I'm using a space ship right here, and then space captain, caps right here. That means that then I can refer to these tables in the same SQL as ship and as caps. This makes it a bit more, yeah, this just saves me some typing, that's all. That means that then I can say join that table right there, the real captain table, and you need to join it on this these two fields right here. That means ship.captainid equals to caps.id, which is right there. Let us execute this right here. Control Enter, and now you can actually see. Let me just jump. Let me go to the left side right here. So now you can see that I got. Yeah, now you can see the data, and you can see we got we got all of the columns. We have the ship right here. We also have the captain data. All of it selected in the same SQL because we selected all of the columns with the star, and we joined the two tables with each other. I hope you got something out of this. If you're new to SQL, this is, of course, I'm just scratching the surface right here. I'm going to upload all of these scripts, and I hope we can get started with SQL and with databases, relational databases, by using this project right here. I'll upload it to my GitHub account as usual. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great evening. Hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.